ever feel like you're constantly pushing a boulder uphill with your business?
Yeah.
Like you're giving it your all,
Yeah.
but the results just aren't there.
Right.
We're diving into Traction today by Gino Wickman
Oh, good one.
to really kind of explore his entrepreneurial operating system, EOS for short,
Okay.
which might be the solution you've been looking for.
So Wickman has worked with tons and tons of entrepreneurs. And what he created with EOS, it's not just some like theory,
Right.
it's a system that's been tested, to get your business running smoothly.
Think of this deep dive as like your crash course in the 6 key components:
Okay.
vision, people, data, issues, process, and traction.
Got it.
We'll unpack each one
Okay.
and highlight those practical, insights so you can start using them today.
So one of the things that EOS really zeroes in on is, that common problem that a lot of business leaders have. Leaders just assume that everyone understands their vision for the company.
Right.
And so what it does is it gives you a really structured way to define and communicate that vision. And it all starts with figuring out your core values.
Okay.
Like the fundamental principles that guide your company's every decision.
It's like figuring out the DNA of your company, right?
Yeah.
And then you use that to define your core focus.
Exactly.
Wickman has this great example in the book, this simple mission statement: to improve the quality of life in our town. It tells you, like right away, what the company's all about.
Right, and that's so important because when you have a mission statement that's clearly defined, it gives everybody a sense of purpose, a sense of, that they can really rally behind.
Yeah.
It's not just, some nice sounding statement. It's a roadmap. It's like a roadmap for your company, It's a
Yeah.
benchmark for decisions.
Now, you can have the best vision in the world.
Right.
If you don't have the right people to execute it, you're going nowhere. It's like having a high-performance race car, but with an amateur driver.
Exactly. And that's where the people analyzer comes in.
Okay.
This tool helps you evaluate whether your employees' values align with your company's core values.
Okay. So,
It's not about finding perfect people,
Right.
right? It's about finding the right people. The people that are going to thrive in your company's culture and, contribute to your goals.
yeah, I've definitely I've been in situations where I've tried to like fit a square peg in a round hole, so to speak.
Right.
I tried to make it work.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it wasn't fair to the employee or the company.
Right.
And a tool like the People Analyzer
Yeah.
would have been helpful
Yeah.
in identifying those mismatches earlier on.
Yeah. And the people analyzer is not just for hiring new people, right?
Okay.
You can use it to assess your existing team.
Oh, okay.
See if there are any gaps
Okay.
or if people might be better suited for different roles.
So it's not just about bringing the right people on board.
Yeah.
But it's also making sure they're in the right seats on the bus, so to speak.
Exactly. Now let's talk about data.
Okay.
Wickman has a great quote in the book, "What gets measured gets done."
Okay.
EOS really takes that to heart with the concept of a weekly scorecard, which is tracking like 5 to 15 key numbers
Yeah.
that give you a snapshot
Okay.
of your business's health.
It's like having a dashboard for your business,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's showing you like revenue growth,
Mm-hmm.
customer acquisition costs, employee satisfaction, all of that.
Exactly.
By tracking these metrics, you can kind of spot trends,
Yeah.
see potential problems early on, and make those, good decisions.
And this data isn't just for you as the leader.
Okay.
It's shared with the entire team,
Wow.
which creates that culture of transparency and accountability,
Okay.
where everyone understands how their individual effort
Yeah.
contributes to the overall success of the company.
Wickman really emphasizes those weekly leadership meetings
Mhm.
where you're reviewing that data, discussing issues that come up and making adjustments.
Absolutely. These meetings are not just about, reporting numbers.
Yeah.
It's about having those open and honest conversations, brainstorming solutions, and making sure everyone's aligned
Okay.
and moving in the same direction.
Okay, so we got a clear vision, the right people,
Yeah.
a system for tracking data.
Yeah.
But what happens when, inevitably, issues arise?
Well, that's where the EOS IDS framework comes in. Identify, discuss, and solve.
Okay.
This simple framework, it emphasizes that proactive problem solving.
Yeah.
And in the book, Wickman actually tells a story about a company that was always putting out fires, They were so reactive instead of proactive,
Right.
and it was draining their energy and their growth.
Sounds like a lot of companies. They wait till a problem becomes a crisis before they take action.
Exactly. That's what EOS tries to prevent.
Yeah.
by identifying and addressing issues early on.
Okay.
You can avoid those major blow-ups and keep your business moving forward.
So how does this IDS framework work practically? What are some examples of issues a company might tackle with this?
EOS recommends creating 3 types of issues lists:
Okay.
quarterly, weekly, and departmental.
Okay.
So, for example, a quarterly issue might be, how can we improve our customer onboarding process?
Okay.
It's a more strategic issue
Yeah.
that requires more in-depth discussion and planning.
So then a weekly issue could be something more tactical, like we're behind schedule on a key project.
Yeah.
How do we get back on track?
Exactly. And departmental issues are specific to a certain team or function, right?
Right.
So the marketing team might be grappling with how to improve their lead generation.
So each level has its own set of issues,
Mm-hmm.
and the IDS framework kind of provides that consistent approach to tackling them,
Yeah,
which is a great way to create a culture of accountability and
Yes.
problem solving.
it is. And speaking of consistent approaches, let's move on to process,
Yeah.
the 5th component of EOS. One of the key insights from the book is that documented processes are essential
Yeah.
for creating a business that's scalable and valuable.
It makes sense. When everybody knows exactly what to do and how to do it,
Yeah,
there's less room for error, and it's easier to train new people.
exactly.
But where do you even begin documenting all your processes?
Well, Wickman recommends focusing on those 3 key areas: marketing, human relations, and operations.
Okay.
So let's say you're a software company. Your marketing process, right, might include steps for attracting new leads,
Okay.
nurturing them through the sales funnel,
Okay.
and then converting them into paying customers.
And then you have your HR processes, everything from
Yes,
recruiting and hiring,
Yeah.
onboarding, performance reviews, all that.
exactly. And your operations process
Right.
would outline the steps for developing, testing, and releasing your software products.
Okay.
So by documenting these processes, you create a blueprint for your business.
It's like creating a recipe for success.
It is.
You outline those ingredients and steps
Yeah,
to ensure a consistent, delicious outcome.
that's a great analogy. And just like a good recipe,
Yeah.
these documented processes, they need to be accessible to everyone. Wickman emphasizes having like a central location,
Okay.
a central repository, whether it's online
Okay.
or a physical binder.
So no more digging through emails
Yeah.
or asking a colleague like, hey, how do you do this?
Exactly.
Everyone has access to the same information and follows the same procedures.
Exactly.
So it eliminates confusion, and it should improve efficiency.
It does. And that brings us to the final component of EOS, traction.
Okay.
This is where all the pieces come together. You've got a clear vision,
Yeah.
the right people, a system for tracking data,
Okay.
a framework for solving issues,
Yeah.
and documented processes. Now it's time to put it all into action.
This is where we go from planning to doing.
Yeah.
Wickman introduces the concept of rocks in this section,
Yes.
which are essentially 90-day goals.
Yeah. The key insight here is that by focusing on, 3 to 7 quarterly rocks,
Yeah.
you avoid getting bogged down
Okay.
in all that day-to-day stuff.
Right.
And instead, you're making progress toward that long-term vision.
So it's about like prioritizing those most important things,
Exactly.
making sure everyone's aligned on what needs to get done.
Exactly. And to ensure that those rocks actually get done,
Okay.
EOS relies on these structured meetings.
Okay, we did touch on these earlier, but
Yeah.
I'm ready to dive deeper.
All right, so in EOS, there are 2 main types of meetings,
Mm-hmm.
quarterly and weekly.
Okay.
The quarterly meetings are all about setting those rocks right,
Okay.
reviewing progress,
Okay.
and then making adjustments to the plan.
So it's like that high-level check-in
It is.
to make sure that everyone's on the same page, moving in the right direction.
Exactly. And then the weekly meetings are a lot more tactical, right?
Okay.
You're reviewing the scorecard data,
Mhm.
discussing any issues that have come up, and then ensuring everyone's on track to hit their weekly targets.
It's like that constant feedback loop
Yeah,
to keep the entire team informed, accountable.
it is. Yeah.
I'm really starting to see how all these components work together to create like this system
Yeah.
for success.
It is a very holistic system.
Yeah.
And what's powerful about it is that it doesn't just address the practical stuff.
Right.
It addresses the human element too, right?
Right.
So EOS is about creating a culture of transparency, accountability, trust.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because a business is only as good as the people running it.
Exactly. And when you have a team that's aligned, engaged, and empowered,
Yeah.
you can achieve incredible things.
This has been a fantastic overview of the first half of EOS.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break and we'll come back to unpack the rest. Welcome back. We just finished covering the first 3 components of EOS:
Yeah.
vision, people, and data.
Mm.
What insights have jumped out at you so far?
You know, what really strikes me is how EOS really stresses clarity and alignment,
Yeah.
starting with that vision, that company vision, and making sure everyone on the team really gets it and embraces it.
Yeah.
It's like laying a strong foundation for everything that comes after.
Yeah, it's so easy to assume that everybody's on the same page.
Oh, yeah.
But as we talked about earlier, that's rarely the case.
Right.
So EOS gives you the tools to kind of bridge that gap and make sure that everybody is, rowing in the same direction.
And it's not just about getting everybody to agree with the vision.
Right.
It's about getting them to contribute to it, feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves.
That's a great point. So it's not just about top-down leadership.
Right.
It's about creating a culture where everyone feels ownership and responsibility.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's move on to the 4th component: issues.
Okay.
We touched on the IDS framework earlier, but I'd love to dive a little deeper.
Sure. So the IDS framework is all about creating a system for identifying,
Okay.
discussing, and solving issues in a proactive and, efficient way. So instead of letting these problems fester and grow,
Right.
EOS encourages you to tackle them head on, right?
But isn't there a risk of, getting bogged down in problem solving
Sure.
and losing sight of the bigger picture?
Yeah.
How do you balance that? Being proactive,
Yeah.
but also staying focused on your goals?
That's a great question. ES addresses this by stressing the importance of prioritizing. You don't have to solve everything at once.
Right.
You focus on the most important issues,
Okay.
the ones that are hindering your progress. Right.
Right. So it's about being strategic with your problem solving.
Exactly.
Not just reacting to every little thing that comes up.
Right. Exactly. And EOS gives you a structure for doing this.
Yeah.
Remember those 3 types of issues lists that we talked about earlier?
Mm-hmm.
Quarterly, weekly, and departmental.
Right.
Each list serves a specific purpose.
Right. So the quarterly list would be for those big picture strategic issues, while the weekly list would be more tactical, like immediate concerns.
Yeah.
And then the departmental list would be for issues specific to a certain team or function.
Exactly. And by having these lists, you're making sure that issues are addressed at the right level
Yeah.
and at the right time.
It sounds like a great way to prevent those small problems from snowballing into these major crises.
Exactly.
Now, I'm curious, what are some of the most common issues
Right.
that businesses face? Are there any patterns that you've observed?
Yeah. So one common issue is a lack of clarity
Okay.
around roles and responsibilities. When people aren't sure what they're supposed to be doing or
Right.
who's accountable for what,
Mm-hmm.
it just creates a lot of confusion, frustration, and inefficiency.
That's like trying to build a house without a blueprint.
Exactly.
Everyone is running around doing their own thing, but there's no plan.
Exactly. And another common issue is lack of communication.
Oh.
When people aren't communicating well, it just leads to misunderstandings, missed deadlines, and a lack of alignment.
So EOS addresses these communication breakdowns
Yes.
through the emphasis on meetings and that open dialogue.
Exactly.
It's about creating a culture where people feel comfortable speaking up
Exactly.
and sharing their ideas and concerns.
Precisely. Another common issue is the lack of process.
Okay.
When you don't have clear processes in place, it
Yeah.
creates inconsistencies, inefficiency,
Mm.
and a lack of scalability.
Right. So EOS tackles this through documenting
Yeah.
and systematizing those key processes, especially in those 3 areas we've talked about before: marketing, HR, and operations.
Exactly. And this is where the 5th component of EOS comes in: process.
Okay, let's talk about that. You mentioned earlier that documented processes are essential for creating a scalable and valuable business.
Right.
But what does that actually look like? How do you go from that chaos to that clarity when it comes to your business processes?
The first step is to identify your core processes. These are the essential activities that make your business run.
Mm-hmm.
So for a software company, this might include product development, sales, marketing, customer support, financial management.
Okay, so you've identified your core processes. Now what?
Now you got to document them.
Okay.
This means breaking down each process into steps
Go.
and figure out who's responsible for each step.
Okay.
And it's really important to be as detailed as possible.
Yeah.
So anyone can follow the process. Right.
So it's not just about writing down what needs to be done.
Exactly.
It's about creating that step-by-step guide
Yes.
that eliminates ambiguity
Yeah.
or any guesswork.
Exactly. And remember, documenting processes.
Yeah.
It's not a one-time thing.
Right.
It's an ongoing process.
Okay.
You have to review it and update it regularly.
That makes sense. As your business grows, evolves,
Yeah.
your processes are probably going to have to adapt as well.
Absolutely. And the beauty of having these documented processes is it makes it much easier to train new employees, right?
Right.
Delegate tasks,
Right.
scale your business. When everybody knows what to do and how to do it,
Yeah.
it creates consistency, efficiency, peace of mind.
I can see how that would be incredibly valuable,
Yeah.
especially for businesses that are growing fast or maybe going through a lot of change.
Right.
So it's like having that solid foundation that you can build upon. Now let's talk about the sixth and final component of EOS traction.
All right. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that this is where all the pieces come together, where you go from planning to doing.
Yes.
But what does that actually look like? How do you make sure that you're not just spinning your wheels?
Yeah.
You're making progress towards your goals.
Well, this is where the rocks come in.
Okay.
So rocks, as we mentioned earlier, are those 90-day goals, the 3 to 7 most important things you need to accomplish
Okay.
in that next quarter to move your business forward.
Okay, so you've got your rocks defined. How do you make sure they actually get done? I know we talked about meetings a bit earlier, but I'm curious to hear more about how EOS structures meetings to maximize productivity and accountability.
So in EOS, meetings are not just, a time to chat or whatever. They're
Right.
highly structured,
Okay.
and they're focused on achieving specific outcomes. So 2 main types of meetings in EOS,
Okay.
quarterly and weekly.
Okay, let's break those down. So what happens in a quarterly meeting?
Quarterly meetings are all about reviewing progress,
Okay.
setting those goals for the next quarter, and,
Okay.
resolving any major issues that might be blocking the company's progress.
Okay.
These meetings usually involve the leadership team and other key stakeholders.
So it's like that high-level strategic planning session
Yeah,
where you take a step back and assess where you are, where you want to go, how you're going to get there.
exactly. And a key part of that quarterly meeting is setting those rocks, right?
Right.
Those 90-day goals.
Right.
That will, drive the company's effort for the next quarter.
So the quarterly meeting is about setting that big picture direction.
Exactly.
What about weekly meetings? What's the focus there?
So weekly meetings, they're a lot more tactical, right?
Okay.
They're about reviewing the progress on the rocks, identifying and solving any issues that may have popped up,
Okay.
and then just ensuring everyone is on track to achieve those weekly goals.
So it's like a weekly check-in to make sure everybody's aligned, accountable,
Exactly.
moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
It sounds like a great way to maintain that momentum and prevent things from falling through the cracks.
Exactly. And one of the key tools that we use in the weekly meeting is that scorecard.
Right, the scorecard.
Remember that we talked about it earlier?
Yeah, with the data component, right?
Yeah. The scorecard tracks those, 5 to 15 key numbers that just give you a quick snapshot of your business's health.
So by reviewing the scorecard each week, the leadership team can see if they're on track to achieve their goals.
Exactly.
And then identify any areas that need attention.
Right.
Those weekly meetings are all about that execution and accountability, making sure that the rocks actually get done.
Precisely. And the combination of those quarterly and weekly meetings, it creates a rhythm for the business, right? That predictable cadence,
Yeah.
that helps keep everyone focused and moving forward.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. You start with the clear vision.
Yeah.
You get the right people.
Mm-hmm.
You track your progress with data. You address issues proactively. You document your processes.
Yeah.
Then you use the rocks and those structured meetings to maintain traction and ultimately achieve your goals.
Yeah.
It really is a holistic system.
It is. And one of the things that I really appreciate about EOS
Yeah.
is that it's not just about, achieving business success. It's also about creating a healthy and fulfilling work environment.
That's a great point. When you have that clear vision, a strong team, a system for getting things done,
Yeah.
it creates that sense of purpose and accomplishment that can be so motivating.
Exactly. It can reduce stress,
Yeah.
create a more harmonious work environment. When people feel like they're part of a winning team,
Right.
they're going to be more engaged, productive, and happy.
So EOS isn't just a business system. It's a philosophy for living a more fulfilling life.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Now, before we wrap up our discussion on EOS,
Okay.
I'd love to get your take on some of the potential challenges or pitfalls of implementing this system.
Sure.
What are some things that businesses should be aware of?
One common challenge is resistance to change.
Okay.
EOS really requires a shift in mindset
Yeah.
a willingness to embrace new ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And, some people may be resistant to that, especially if they're comfy with the status quo.
So it's important to have that buy-in from the team from the start.
Absolutely. And another challenge is the time commitment.
Yep.
Implementing EOS, it takes time and effort.
Right.
It's not a quick fix.
Yeah.
You have to be dedicated to the process, right?
Right. So businesses need to be realistic about the time, the resources that are required.
Exactly. And another potential pitfall is not being disciplined enough.
Okay.
EOS is a framework. It's not a magic bullet.
Right.
It really requires discipline and consistency.
So it's not enough to just read the book
Right.
or attend a workshop. You've got to put the principles into practice and
Exactly.
stick with them.
Absolutely. And another challenge is finding the right EOS implementer.
Okay.
If you choose to go that route. There are many great implementers out there,
Right.
but you got to find one that's a good fit for your company culture,
Right.
your specific needs.
It's like finding any other key member of your team. Do
Exactly.
your research, ask the right questions,
Yeah,
and make sure you're comfortable with that person that's going to be guiding you.
precisely. And finally, it's important to remember that EOS is not a one-size-fits-all solution.
No.
What works for one company may not work for another, right?
So you've got to be willing to adapt the system
Yeah.
to your unique circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Make it your own.
Exactly. The key is to understand those principles behind EOS and then apply them in a way that makes sense for your business.
This has been a really insightful conversation. I feel like I have a much deeper understanding of EOS
Yeah.
and how it can help businesses. Before we move on to the outro, is there anything else that you'd like to add about EOS?
One thing I would emphasize is that EOS is not just for large companies.
Okay.
It can be just as effective for, small businesses, startups, even solopreneurs.
Sometimes people think that these systems are only for those big corporations.
Yeah.
But the truth is any business can benefit
Oh, absolutely.
from that clear vision, strong team, a system for getting things done.
Exactly. And EOS is a great way to achieve that.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, we have.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll come back for our outro. We've covered so much in our deep dive into Gino Wickman's traction and his entrepreneurial operating system.
Yeah, EOS.
It's been fascinating to explore how to really build a healthy business.
One thing that really stands out to me is that EOS isn't just about
Yeah.
maximizing profits.
Right.
It's really about building that company culture where
Yeah.
everyone is, aligned and engaged
Yeah.
and empowered to contribute their best work.
Before we started this deep dive,
Yeah.
I thought EOS might be a little bit too rigid for me.
Okay.
Too complex, but I've totally changed my mind.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great.
It's surprisingly adaptable and user-friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the emphasis on continuous improvement.
Yeah, one of the most powerful things about EOS, I think, is the focus on data and accountability.
Right.
Those weekly scorecards and leadership meetings are game changers when it comes to tracking progress and, identifying those potential problems early on.
I can definitely see how that would take out a lot of the guesswork.
Right.
Instead of relying on gut feelings,
Yeah.
you're using data and metrics.
Exactly. And by getting the whole team involved in that process, you're
Yeah.
building a culture of transparency,
Yeah.
shared responsibility, so everyone knows how their work contributes.
That sense of ownership is so important,
Right.
for building a motivated team.
Totally.
Instead of feeling like just a cog in the machine,
Yeah.
they feel like they're valued and they have a stake in the future.
Exactly. Wickman makes a really strong case for having the right people in the right seats.
Yeah.
It's not just about finding people who are talented,
Yeah.
but ensuring that their values align with the company's focus.
I love that analogy of getting everyone in the right seats on the bus.
It's such a good one.
It just really shows how important it is to have that team that's not just skilled but aligned
Right.
and all moving in the same direction.
Yeah. And the People Analyzer tool, is
Yeah.
a perfect example of how EOS provides those solutions
Mhm.
to business challenges. It takes out the subjectivity of evaluating,
Right. Yeah.
helps you make those tough decisions with more clarity.
It's like having a framework to build a dream team.
It is.
A team where everybody is not just capable,
Yeah.
but passionate
Hmm.
committed to that shared vision.
Speaking of vision, that's where EOS really, I think, excels.
Yeah.
It helps you to define that clear and compelling vision
Hmm.
that everyone in the company can understand, get
Yeah.
behind. It's not just some vague thing,
Right.
It's an actual roadmap
Right. It's that roadmap.
of where you're going and how you're going to get there.
I remember that simple, powerful example from the book to improve the quality of life in our town.
Yeah, it's such a good one.
It just immediately tells you what they're all about
It does.
and the impact they want to make.
Exactly. And by connecting that vision
Yeah.
to those core values and focus, you
Yeah.
create a real sense of purpose.
It's not just about, making money. It's about making a difference
Exactly.
within the company and the community.
And that sense of purpose, really fuels that motivation, drives that success long term.
Now, we've talked a lot about the positives of EOS,
Mm-hmm.
but it's important to acknowledge that any new system, it can be challenging
Oh, yeah, for
to
sure.
implement.
It can. ES requires that commitment to change, that willingness to embrace new ways
Right.
of thinking and doing things.
And it's not a quick fix. It takes time,
It does.
effort, and discipline to really implement it in the right way.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest challenges is overcoming that resistance to change.
Right.
People get comfortable,
They do.
and they're hesitant to let go of those old ways, even if they're not working.
Yeah. So it's so important to have that strong leadership and clear communication
Yes,
throughout the process
for sure.
so that everyone understands why we're making these changes and how they'll benefit.
Another potential challenge,
Yeah.
is finding the right EOS implementer if you decide to go that route.
Right. Yeah.
There are many great ones out there, but it's so important to find one that's a good fit,
Right. It's like finding any other member of your team.
Exactly.
Do
Yeah.
your research, ask the right
For
questions,
sure.
make sure you're comfortable with the person who's going to guide you through the journey.
Exactly. The right implementer can be a huge help
Right.
to navigate those challenges and make sure you're getting the most out of the system.
Okay. So as we're wrapping up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay.
Imagine you've successfully implemented EOS and your business is running smoothly. What's the one thing, knowing what you know now, that you would do differently?
That's a great question. If I could go back and do one thing differently, it would be to embrace the EOS mindset,
Okay.
more fully from the very beginning. It's not just
Mhm.
a set of tools and processes. It really is a way of thinking,
Right.
a way of approaching the business and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
It's about that long-term view, building a strong team and creating a company that is profitable and purpose-driven.
That's such a great insight. So EOS is not just a recipe for business success. It's a philosophy
Yeah.
for building a better company and a better life.
It really is. And, I think that any business, no matter how big or small,
Right.
or what industry,
Yeah.
can benefit from adopting EOS.
This has been an incredible deep dive into traction.
It has been, and
We've covered a lot, but I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
yeah, Traction is a book that I recommend
Yeah.
to any leader who wants to take their company further.
And if you want to learn more about EOS, there are so many resources out there.
They're
Online, the EOS worldwide website, implementers.
exactly.
So we encourage you to check those out and see how EOS can help you.
Yeah, achieve your business goals.
Yeah.
Build a company you're really proud of.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful,
I did.
inspiring.
For sure.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing for traction.